Hello everyone. The next topic which we will be discussing here is about the sensory reception and processing. So we will be discussing the sense organs here and how they function. So let's start with the introduction first. That our senses will make us aware of the changes that occur in the surroundings and also in our body. So if I talk about the term that is known as the sensation, then sensation means awareness of the stimuli. And if I talk about the term perception, so what it means? So this term means the interpretation of the meaning of the stimulus that occurs in our brain. So these are the meaning of these two terms. Now, there are some of the receptors that are classified based on their location. So we will be discussing that receptor. So first receptor is exter extero. So what is it? They are located at or near the surface of the body, and these are sensitive to external stimuli and receive sensory inputs for hearing, vision, touch, taste, and smell. The next type of receptor is interoceptors. Now, what are these receptors? They are located in the organs and the blood vessels, and they are sensitive to internal stimuli. So, as the that means internal stimuli. So, the next type of receptor is proprioceptors. Now, what are these kind of receptors? They are also a kind of interoceptors. They provide information about the position and the movement of the body, and these are located in the skeletal muscles, tendons, joints, ligaments, and in the connective tissue which is covering the bones and the muscles. So in this particular table, there are receptors, there are stimuli, and there are effector organs. Now there are mechanoreceptors. The stimulus is pressure and the vibration, whereas effector organs, which are mechanoreceptors, that are present in the cochlea. So cochlea, it is the part of a ear, of the inner ear, and the semicircular canal and utriculus. Then there are chemoreceptors. The stimulus is chemical. Where they are present in the tongue and the nasal epithelium. Thermoreceptors, thermo, which relates to the temperature. So it is the skin, the effector organ is the skin. Photoreceptors, which means light. That means there are rod and cone cells of the retina in the eye. So the rod and cone cells are responsible for color in the eye. Now, we will be discussing different kinds of receptors. So first I will be discussing is about the photoreceptors, which is present in the eye. So eye, it is the organ of the vision, which is located in the orbit of the skull and held in its position with the help of 6 extrinsic muscles. They are superior, inferior, lateral, median rectus muscle, superior oblique and inferior oblique. So these are the kind of muscles. Now there is a structure of eye which is representing various parts in the eye. So if I talk about the eyelid here, so what the eyelid do and eyebrows do? Eyelid and the eyebrows, they help to protect the eyeballs from foreign objects and also from the direct rays of the sunlight. So these two things will help in the protection. Then there are two compartments, that is the interior and posterior compartments. So first I will talk about is the interior compartments. So interior compartments, they have two chambers. What have they have? They have two chambers. First one lies between the cornea and the iris, and the second one lies between the iris and the lens. So these two chambers are filled with watery fluid, which is called as the aqueous humor. So these two are filled with the aqueous humor. The next, if I talk about, is the posterior compartment. So posterior compartment, it is lies between the lens and the retina, and it is filled with a jelly-like fluid which is called as the vitreous humor. That helps to retain the spherical nature of the eye. So this was about the photoreceptors of the eye. Now there are other organs, there are other kind of things in the eye also. For example, eyeball, which is spherical in nature, and the eyeball have further three orbits, three layers, from which it has been formed. So the eye also have rods and cone cells. So rods, they are responsible for the dim light, and the cones, they are responsible for the bright light. And if I talk about the mechanism of vision, so when the light enters the eye, it gets refracted by the cornea, aqueous humor, and the lens, and it is focused on the retina and excites the rod and the cone cells. So this is how the mechanism of eye works. So next I will talk about is the phonoreceptors. So phonoreceptors, they are the part of the ear. Ear is the site of reception of two senses, namely hearing and equilibrium. Now, ear has been further divided into three parts, And what are these three parts? These three parts are external ear, middle ear, and the internal ear. Now, the external ear consists of pinna, external auditory meatus, and the eardrum. So, what the pinna do? Pinna basically collects the sound waves, and there is a tympanic membrane which is composed of connective tissue with skin outside and with mucus inside. So this was about the external ear. The middle ear, it is a small air-filled cavity in the temporal bone, and it is being separated from the external ear by the eardrum. This was about the middle ear. So middle ear consists of further three ossicles, that is malleus, inus, and stapes, which are attached to one another. And if I talk about the inner ear, then it is a fluid-filled cavity which is consisting of two parts, that is the bony labyrinth and the membranous labyrinth. So these are the two parts of the inner ear. Now, how mechanism of hearing, that how the ear functions. So there are sound waves which enter the external auditory meatus that fall on the tympanic membrane or the eardrum, and this causes the eardrum to vibrate, and these vibrations then are transmitted to the oval window. So oval window is being depicted here through the three auditory ossicles, that is the stapes, inus, and malleus. Since the tympanic membrane is 17 to 20 times larger than the oval window, the pressure exerted on the oval window is 20 times more than that of the tympanic membrane. So this increased pressure will generate pressure waves in the fluid of perilymph, and this pressure causes the round window to alternately bulge outwards and inwards. Meanwhile, the basicular membrane along with the organ of Kodai move up and down. So these movement of the hair alternatively close and open the mechanically gated ion channels, and the action potential is being propagated to the brain through the cochlear nerve. So this was the mechanism of hearing in case of the ear. So this was all about it. I will talk about is the olfactory receptors. So olfactory receptors, they are responsible for the taste and smell, and they are the type of the chemoreceptors. So these smell receptors are excited by the airborne chemicals that are dissolved in the fluid. So in yellow colored patches, as displayed in the figure as well, so these yellow colored patches, they patches of olfactory epithelium form the olfactory organ. So this part forms the olfactory organ. Now the that are located on the roof of the nasal cavity also. And the olfactory epithelium is being covered by a thin coat of mucus layer and olfactory glands, which is bounded by the connective tissues. Now it contains three types of cells. What it contains is, it contains three types of cells: supporting cells, basal cells, and millions of pin-shaped olfactory receptors as well. So this was a brief of the olfactory receptors. Now comes the skin, which is the sense of the touch. Skin is the sensory organ of touch and it is considered as one of the largest sense organs. This sensation comes from millions of microscopic sensory receptors which is located all over the skin, and it is being associated with the general sensation of contact, pressure, heat, cold, and pain. So some parts of the body, such as the fingertips, they have a large number of receptors, making them more sensitive. So as you can see in this figure is depicting skin receptors. So there are free nerve endings, then there are micinal corpuscles, Ruffini endings, root hair plexus, then corpuscles and crossin bulbs and Merkel discs. So these are some of the skin receptors that are present on the skin. Now, if I talk about them, then tactical there are tactical Merkel disc, which is a light touch receptor lying in the deeper layer of the epidermis. If I talk about hair follicle receptors, then they are the light touch receptors lying on the hair follicles, as the name suggests. If I talk about the micinal corpuscles, they are the small light pressure receptors. They are small light pressure receptors that are found just beneath the epidermis in the dermal papilla. They are numerous in hairless skin such as finger, soles of the feet. Then comes the penicean corpuscles. So what are these? So these are the large egg-shaped receptors. So these are the large egg-shaped receptors found scattered deep in the dermis and monitoring vibration due to pressure. So it allows to detect different textures, temperature, hardness, and pain. And if I talk about the Ruffini endings, so what are these? They lie in the dermis. Responds to continuous pressure. So it responds to continuous pressure. And if I talk about this part that cross this, so they are the thermoreceptors. What are they? They are the thermoreceptors that sense the temperature. So this was all about it, the sensory processing and the reception. So this was all about it. These are some of the references.